What is up, guys? Colin Main here. I figured I would recreate my old YouTube channel. So I used to have a YouTube channel. I had like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers or something like that. But I forgot the email and the password. Plus, I also stopped using it for like, I don't know, like 5 years or something. But if you guys don't follow me on, say, Instagram or TikTok, a lot of people message me and they're like, "Hey, like we want to see like longer format content." And I do a lot of cool stuff. I know a lot of very successful and intellectual people, so I figured I should share some experiences and put out some more content for the people that are kind enough to follow me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little introduction video. If you guys don't know who I am, or if you're one of the OG followers, I'll kind of give a backstory and a history of who I am and how I got to where I am. And if you guys want to follow me and subscribe, awesome. And if you guys don't want to, that is perfectly fine as well. So I guess it kind of all started in 2014. My entrepreneurial social media endeavor, I should say. So at the time, I'm from Northern Canada. I'm from a super small town called Cold Lake. If you guys know it, kudos to you, but there's only like a few thousand people there, so it's not very popular. But what is popular there, what is popular there is the oil and gas industry. So at the time, I was in my third year of welding school, I believe, and it was a 4-year program. So I was wanting to get into B pressure welding, which is pressurized pipe. And I wanted to make a bunch of money. You can make like at the time, journeymen were making like $120 an hour, which was awesome. So that was kind of my goal. I started working out in the oil and gas industry out at sites. So what we were doing is we were working, the different shifts changed all the time depending on the site that you were at. But the one that I was at that I remember that I first started on, or at the time I should say, was 21 days on, 7 days off. So you would go into the middle of nowhere and you'd stay at a big work camp. They would provide like food and housing and lodging and stuff like that, which it's not the best lodging, but it's like a bed and like a little TV. And then all your meals were taken care of, and you worked 12 to 14-hour days depending on what your tasks were for the day. So I was welding there, and I got partnered with a guy named Coleman Washbrook, which I will only say wonderful things about Coleman. He was, and he's kind of a catalyst to where I got to where I am, because at the time I was a 25-year-old. Oh no, not even 25. I think I was like 24 or 23 years old or something like that. Just a dumb kind of not as emotionally intelligent individual, and doing things that typical 23-year-olds do, especially when you're making decent money in the oil field. So I got partnered up with him. And if you know anything about the oil and gas industry, or like construction workers and stuff like that, they're not the most positive mindset individuals. So I was constantly surrounded. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're surrounded by like, say, 2,000 to 4,000 people in these camps. 98% of them are men. There's literally no women there, or there's a very, very small percentage of women that are there. So I was constantly surrounded by individuals that were on like their 5th divorce. They're fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and they kind of had to stay in that cycle in the oil field to make money to get out of debt, or it's just because that's what they knew. So the mindset is not the most productive or progressive, I should say, in that field of work. So I was constantly around individuals that like kind of wanted to pull you down, and my interest was peaking in personal development and trying to figure out, how the fuck do I get out of here? Like, I knew I didn't want to be in the oil industry for my whole life. I didn't want to do that. So by God or fate or whatever you want to believe in, I got partnered up with an individual called Coleman. And he was like the only guy that was into like Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, like personal development and mindset stuff. So when we were sitting in the truck and we didn't have something to do, we had some downtime, he would constantly be having Tony Robbins like audiobooks and stuff like that. This was way before podcasts. He had audiobooks from Tony Robbins and like YouTube clips and stuff like that. So he kind of kickstarted my interest in like the power of the mind and like looking outside of the box for potential ways of making revenue and income and stuff, and ways to get the fuck out of the oil field. So that's kind of where it all started. And around that time, I was seeing a girl that she was maybe not the best influence for me on positive and personal development, but she was a ton of fun every time. Like probably one of the best personalities of an individual that I've ever come across. Like I had so much fun. She had a great sense of humor and stuff like that. So I fell really hard for her. And then come to find out a few months into the relationship that she had cheated on me. And I caught wind of that, and it broke my heart. But that's kind of that was the motivation I needed to really decide, like, hey, I need to do a fucking 180 with my life. So I went cold turkey on any vices. I didn't do drugs or anything like that. I've never been into drugs. Never done coke or anything. I've done MDMA like once or twice, maybe like 3 times. Anyways, but I didn't smoke weed or anything like that. So my vices were chewing tobacco, so nicotine, alcohol. I was definitely going out and partying and enjoying myself, trying to distract my mind from anything. And yeah, those were pretty much the biggest ones, alcohol and nicotine. And women. So women were definitely a distraction. So I decided to do a 180, and I made a kind of a mental pact with myself. I was like, I'm not going to have any distractions. I'm going to 100% invest in myself, my personal development, and make myself the man that I need to be in order to achieve a different outcome in my life. So I made a goal. I was going to go 1 year without sex, completely avoid women. I was going to not chew. I was going to not drink. And I wanted a goal to help keep me on track. So previous to that, I was fighting in MMA, and I was competing in jiu-jitsu competitions and stuff like that. But around that time, so when I was a kid, if you guys have noticed, I got this big scar on my head. When I was a kid, I was like 5 years old, 5 or 6. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. So I was playing road hockey on the road, and I shot a ball under this big semi-moving truck, like an Atlas Van Lines giant semi. And I went under to get it, and when I came out to come back onto the road, a bicycle was riding by, and the handlebars clipped my head, ripped out or fractured my skull, ripped out all the fucking big chunk of my head. So I got a big soft spot on the top of my head where they removed like a golf ball size portion of my skull. So at the time when I was fighting in MMA, you didn't need an MRI or a CAT scan to be medically approved to have an MMA fight. So all you needed was your pre-fight medical and your blood work. Which everything was fine. And then if you had an MMA fight and you had lost an MMA fight by a TKO or a knockout, then you had to have a MRI or a CAT scan. So I had never lost from a TKO or a KO, so I didn't ever need one. And then they changed the rules because a Canadian fighter had passed away. And there's a bunch of other reasons too. But anyway, so I couldn't fight in MMA anymore, which was also kind of a blessing in disguise. So I decided I would get into the fitness industry. And at the time, there was no men's physique division. There was some bodybuilders in Canada, but the fitness competition world, I guess, was not very big or prevalent in Canada. And I decided I was going to make an attempt to do a fitness competition. So I entered the category for men's physique, which is like the board shorts and not like the big bodybuilders and stuff. And it kind of seemed like it would be a good goal, and it was amazing. It kept me like focused. I was fighting off all my vices, everything like that, so there's no issues in that sense. And then I did my first competition. I did it 100% natural, and I remember I got third place. I got third place at the competition, but the guy that got first place, I was like, fuck, he looks fucking good. And then I kind of realized that not everybody was natural in the competition. So I was like, all right, well, so I started doing a little bit of research into PEDs, like steroids and stuff like that. And I was like, fuck, I don't know. Like I was fully natural until 27. I think I was 27. No, maybe 26 when I started using something. But I did another show. So when I got third place in that competition, it qualified me to go to Canadian Nationals. So I was like super excited. I was like, wow, I get to like compete at a national competition. But I was still working in the oil field. So I was working 12 to 14 hours a day. And I was like, how the fuck am I going to train like for this and like make it work with my schedule? But just by chance, the competition had fallen on my set of 7 days off. So I was like, you know what? Like there are gyms at these oil field camps that I was staying at. So I was like, fuck it. Like I could probably make this work. So I would do all my meal prep I was driving up there. It was a 4.5 hour drive to go to the camp. So I would prep like 2 weeks of meals, which I probably shouldn't have been cooking chicken and storing it in a fridge in my room for 2 weeks. But anyways, I did it. And then I would have to try to like, for the the last week of my shift, I would have to try to get some people to meal prep for me or pay somebody's like wife or something that I knew that lived in the town close to where the camp was to make me like more food for a week. So I kind of had my nutrition aspect taken care of, and I was like, all right, cool. But now I have to figure out how I'm going to like get my workouts in and stuff around my 12 to 14 hour work schedule. So I would wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and I would do like an hour and a half of cardio and then like a 45-minute quick workout, eat some breakfast. Then I would go to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., get back, hit like another 45-minute workout, eat my food, or maybe eat my food first, hit a 45-minute workout, either or, and then I would pass the fuck out. And then I did that every day. So I prepped for, I want to say like 12 weeks like that. And then I did not do very well at Canadian Nationals. I think I got like 7th or something like that. I just missed like the top 5, the first callouts. Maybe like 6th, 7th, 8th or something. I don't remember. But I do remember the guy that won first. His name was AJ Ashuki or Ashakuri or something like that. And he was a muscle model world champion. And I remember when he got first, I was like, holy fuck. I'd never seen a human being look like him. He was just like fucking shredded, like huge chest, huge shoulders, like big legs, like looked phenomenal. And I remember like seeing him and I was like, oh my God, like I don't look anything like that guy. So that was kind of like where I was like, all right, I need to get medically enhanced if I want to be competitive. So I'll be fully open and honest and transparent with pretty much everything in this. Well, with everything in this. So yeah, I came back and I think that I did a bunch of other regional shows, but I probably did like 7 or 8 more competitions. And then I started dabbling in like using things like Trenbolone, Winstrol, Anavar, testosterone. I don't think I used Masteron too much. I think I did use Masteron for maybe like my 10th or 11th show. But yeah, anyways, so at Canadian Nationals, I ended up meeting a girl. And she was beautiful, crazy blue eyes, like great personality, super funny. But the problem was that she lived on that other side of Canada. I was living in Alberta, and she was living in Barrie, Ontario. So I was swearing off women at the time, so it was kind of nice. I created like a long distance relationship with her, or maybe just like a getting to know each other type phase. And we were trying to figure out how I would go to see her and stuff like that. So I was like, hey, like I'm on this 21 day on, 7 day off shift. I would love to spend the 7 days off with you. So we did that twice, and I remember like fucking fighting her off because I was really close to doing my 1 year mark, and I was like, I'm not having sex with you. Like I was fighting her off. So I think I only had to do it one time. I did one visit, and it was great. Like we really connected, and it was fun. And then I think my next rotation, I was like, all right, like. I did my 1 year with no alcohol, no nicotine, no sex, no distractions from women. Yeah, so I was like, okay, like I can, I met my goal, and if I want to have sex, I'll make it more physical. So yeah, so we were planning on how to kind of make it work, and I was like, well, this is never going to work if I'm working 21 days on, 7 days off, like. I got a place here, like in Edmonton and stuff like that. So at the time, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to get rid of everything. I'm going to just kind of throw caution to the wind. I'm going to see what happens with this girl. So I was kind of dabbling in online training. At the time, I had like when I started my fitness competitions, I had grown a social media following to like maybe like 40,000 followers on Instagram. So prior to like 2015 or 2014, I never had any Facebook, no Instagram, like nothing. I wasn't even on social media. So around when I started competing, so for maybe like a year from like 2014 to 2015, I started posting photos and like I was gaining kind of some traction just because there were shirtless selfies and stuff like that. And I was getting prepared to do all these competitions. So kind of people rallied behind me and they were like, yeah, like I was creating a little bit of a support system. So it was nice. It also kept me motivated. And it was like a really good period for social media. It was not like what fucking Instagram and social media is now, like where everybody just rips everybody and tries to pull them down. Yeah, so you know what, I said, fuck it. I remember it was in March, like 2015, I want to say. I packed everything up in my truck and I finished my rotation and I just drove home. Drove back to Edmonton, went into my apartment, filled up all my clothes with garbage bags, and my lease was just about done anyway. So I think I only had like a couple weeks left. So I was like, fucking cleaned all my stuff out, threw all my shit in the garbage, things I didn't want to take. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to drive out to Ontario and let's see what happens. Also, caveat to this, I only had about $1,500 in my bank account. So it wasn't thought out very well. So I drive out, it's about 4,500 kilometers from Edmonton to Barrie, Ontario. And I did it all in like maybe like a day and a half. Like I just stayed awake and I was driving like a madman, just crushing energy drinks. I was like, oh man, like I'm super excited for like to see what life's gonna bring me. And I get out to Ontario and I remember I rolled in late at night and she was like working on her computer. It was like midnight when I got in or something like that, like 2 days later. And yeah, knocked on the door. She's like, yeah, come on in. You can stay with me like till you figure things out. And I didn't tell her that I only had like $800 in my bank account. No, I don't even think. Yeah, maybe like $700 or $800 because I spent like $700 or $800 on gas getting out there. So slept there the night, and then I was like, all right, I need to fucking figure out like what I'm gonna do for my life and how I'm gonna make money. But luckily, she was kind of already starting with online training, and it was just kind of, it wasn't even really a thing that a lot of people were doing. So she was like, hey, like I'll show you how to build a website and I'll kind of show you how to market, or at least how I do it on social media and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. So yeah, she like kind of took me under her wing. She's super smart, like dialed in, very driven woman. And she also had her own fitness studio. So she was doing like one-on-one training around the area and stuff. So she was like, yeah, if you want, you can like start like finding your own clients and you can train them at my place and just like give me like a fee or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, fucking sweet. So yeah, like very much so. She just like helped guide me, and I honestly wouldn't be where I am today without her. So yeah, so started doing that, and then I switched my coaching to just online. So because I was doing one-on-ones, and if any of you guys have done one-on-one personal training, you have realized that you're pretty much like what's the term I'm looking for? You're an unqualified therapist is the term I'm looking for. So I noticed that like a lot of people, which I still love, like this is kind of the beauty of personal training. You get to hear about people's problems, like maybe they're fighting at home and like different things that they're going through. And it was just it's an aspect of the personal training that you're like not aware of. Now I actually like love it, but at the time I was like, I'm like 25 years old or 26 years old. I'm like, who am I to tell like these 45-year-old men like how to solve their marriage problems and stuff? Not saying that I'm qualified now or anything. I just have a little bit more life experience and understand things now. But yeah, so I was doing like one-on-ones, and I did that for maybe like a year and a half or a fair amount of time. And then I was growing my social media presence at the time. Created my YouTube channel, which is the other one that I don't have access to, but not that I had lots of videos or anything, but I was growing my following. And then I think on Instagram, like I had like maybe like 500,000 followers or something. I ended up getting up to around 900,000 followers before the algorithm made it so you can only grow with tits and ass and all that stuff now. But so I've lost like a couple 100,000. But at the time, I started utilizing social media, and I was like doing really well, and a bunch of brands started reaching out, like supplement brands, apparel brands, and stuff like that. And it was awesome. They started paying me money just to like promote their stuff, and like if it aligned with my personal brand and who I was as an individual, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, why wouldn't I do this? So I got a lot of really good opportunities given to me through that space, and then yeah, I got to travel like all over Canada to fitness expos. Got to go all over the States to fitness expos. Got to go to Europe. Like I went to the Olympia, the Arnold's, FIBO in Cologne, Germany, everywhere. Body Power in the United Kingdom. It was great. And then I was with the girl for a couple of years, maybe like 2.5 years. And then we ended up splitting up, it was very amicable. And I have nothing, but I still talk to her to this day. She's in Costa Rica, and her and her new boyfriend are doing great. But yeah, so we ended up splitting up very amicably. And then the only problem is that I remember being super difficult because we had 2 dogs together. If you guys know me, I have a Belgian a Belgian Malinois crossed with a Dutch Shepherd. Her name's Vega. I've had her for 9 years, pretty much 8.5 years. Pretty much right after I broke up with this ex, I had 2 other dogs, 2 other Belgian Mals and Dutch Shepherds as well. So that was the hardest part about that breakup. I remember that. I was like, because she had her house and I was going to leave. I was going to go back to Alberta and like kind of visit my family and figure out what I was going to do. So I was like, you know what? The male dog was mine and she had her female. So I was like, you know what? It's best if I just leave them, like both of them together, if you would like to keep both of them. And she was like, yeah, I love these dogs. So I remember having to leave, and I remember just like looking at them and like crying, and I was like, fuck, dude, like this fucking sucks. Yeah. And so anyways, I moved back to, I ended up leaving. I moved back to Alberta, and it was pretty quick. I met like one of my really good friends, Natasha. She's probably one of the coolest chicks you'll ever meet in your life. And she was like a free spirit, like hiking guide and everything. And she took me out and took me hiking and stuff like that. And I remember she was like, hey, I'm going to go to Costa Rica and I'm going to volunteer at a wildlife sanctuary. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because she had already done it like once before. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds like, I fucking love animals. If you guys follow me on Instagram stuff, you know that I'm constantly volunteering with animal shelters and dog SPCAs and stuff like that with dogs. So she's like, why don't you come? So I was like, fuck yeah. I'm like, I'm down for that. Like, I don't really have anything else, and I'm able to run my business, my fitness company, online. So I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. So it was really cool. I flew out to Costa Rica, and then I spent like a month there. I got to work with white-faced capuchins, toucans, sloths, margays, anteaters. The anteaters were really cool. Parrots, everything. There was squirrels. There was a bunch of red squirrels there. Yeah, there was everything. So it was really cool. It was an amazing experience. And then one of the benefits was that I was on the top of a mountain, and I remember overlooking, I think it was Huida, Costa Rica. And I was overlooking the ocean, and I was like, man, this is like super peaceful and like amazing. And I remember having like a moment where I had my computer set up, and there was all the tree canopies and everything below me. And then I was just like, this is so cool that I can help people with their fitness transformations, help change their lives, and I'm able to do this online, and get to be able to fucking be literally in the middle of the jungle and like working with wildlife animals that I love, and I was getting a sense of fulfillment. So I remember being very grateful and happy about that. And then my buddy Tyler, he's my best friend. I've posted a bunch about him. He's a Navy SEAL, and well, he's actually retired now, but at the time he was active duty. And he's like, hey, dude, I'm on days off. Like I'm back in the country and everything. I'm going to be with my wife. We're going to the Olympia. Do you want to go to the Olympia? And I was like, well, when is it? And he's like, it's in like a day, or it was like 2 days away. And I was like, fuck you. I'm like, well, I got to leave here anyways in a couple days. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'll go. So jumped on a plane, flew from Costa Rica. I did like travel all the way. Like it was like 6 hours. I had to go down the mountain, like get a bunch of shuttles, everything, go back to San Jose, Costa Rica. And then I flew from like there to like Vancouver to Las Vegas for the Olympia. I don't know what the route was, but it took me like 15 hours to get there. So I remember showing up there, spent the weekend, did the Olympia, and at this time I didn't have any sponsors for supplements, and just out of nowhere I ended up a company called VPX. They reached out to me, or no, I went to their booth actually. Sorry, because I knew some of their athletes, and I was like saying hi to them, and their owner was like, "Hey, like, are you with any companies?" And I was like, "No, like not currently right now, no." So he said, "Why don't you sign with us?" So I signed with VPX, and you guys would know them as Bang Energy, like Bang Energy, the energy drinks. So it was awesome. Like they were making boatloads of money, and they paid us very, very well. And yeah, it was awesome. But when I signed with them, I signed for the supplement company, which was VPX. And then very quickly, they started realizing that they were going to make a lot more money if they started selling these energy drinks because they were just growing like crazy. And then they kind of started realizing that like they could just get hot chicks and then just post photos of their asses with energy drinks. And then kind of the marketing changed a lot. And so yeah, I did that for like a year with them, maybe a little bit more, maybe a year and a half. But had an amazing time with them. They had like some cool athletes that I really liked. Made some good friendships with the guys there. And then got to travel everywhere. They flew me everywhere. I went to like 50 expos in America. Went to Europe, did a few expos in Europe. I think I did a couple in Canada for them. And then, yeah. And then it started changing too much. And I was like, I don't like, they wanted me to fucking like just hold an energy drink by my abs. And I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I think my contract was coming to an end, and I was like, yeah, like I'm not gonna re-sign with you guys type thing. So left them, and then came back to I went back to Alberta, and then around that time I met one of the hands down best women I have ever met in my life, best human beings I've ever met in my life. And you'll never ever hear me say a bad word about this woman. Her name is Julie Weiss. I will give out her name. If you're ever in Edmonton, go see her. She has a Botox clinic. She's like a nurse practitioner, and she has a very super successful like Botox lip injection type business. But I met her, and yeah, she's just this woman, just like crazy blue eyes. Like, and I remember when I first saw her, I was like, oh my God, like who is that? It wasn't even just that she was beautiful. It was that like just her energy. Like she's the most loving and caring individual you will ever meet in your life. So I was like fucking super fixated on her. I was like, I don't know what it is about this girl, but she's like, I like it. So through pursuing her, I ended up starting to see her. And then she was really, really big into Tony Robbins and like personal development, super, super intelligent woman. And started seeing her, and she really kickstarted my, I was doing really well in business. I had a very good business mindset. I was always listening to like podcasts, or I shouldn't say podcasts, but like YouTube videos and like audiobooks and stuff like that. I was reading nonstop, but it was all business oriented. And I was kind of leaving out like the personal development on my mind and like my emotional state, my spirituality and stuff. So she really got me into that, and she was super spiritual. She was like really big on Sadhguru, Sadhguru, I believe his name was. So yeah, super spiritual, very emotionally intelligent. And she got me into Tony Robbins, but kind of more so into like the personal development side. And yeah, went to a bunch of Tony Robbins events, ultimately signed up for Tony Robbins Platinum membership, which was like a lot of money to invest in. But yeah, she kind of got me into that, but I only saw her, I dated her for like maybe like 6 months. I was not at a point where I could help her grow. So needless to say, it didn't really work out. Her mindset and her vision and her drive was at a different level than mine. And rightfully so, like she is wildly successful now. And I probably wouldn't have aided too much to that at the time in my life. So, but that being said, like it was a very incredible person that I met in my life that I really needed to meet at that time in my life. So after meeting her, I started a different company. I was like, you know what? I'm doing all this stuff with social media and understanding how to market and sell through the fitness industry. I'm like, why don't I try to do this into like another sector? So I can't really remember how I fell into it, but I created my own LLC or an LTD in Canada, and I started working with car dealerships. And I was like, well, I'll just utilize social media and kind of do the same tricks that I was doing for fitness, but to bring in online sales and then get commissions on any cars that they sell. So it was really good. I did very well with it. And then I ended up doing that for like maybe like 6 months or like maybe like a year tops. I can't remember. And I ended up meeting this individual who was like their top salesman, super smart, like sharp. He was a good salesman. He could speak very well, and I was like, man, this guy's like fucking killing it. But he kind of had like a checkered past. He was a drug addict. I think he was like addicted to crack or cocaine or something. I can't remember, but he was on some like actual serious drugs. But he was like totally like clean and everything. And I saw him every day at work, and I was like, fuck yeah, this guy's like, he's dialed in. So we started talking, and he was like, hey, like I want to get out of the car, like because he was kind of working on the floors, and he might have been a manager, I can't remember, but he was doing well for the car dealership. And he's like, I want to kind of start getting into like business coaching. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's awesome, that's super smart. So we started kind of coming up with something, and I was like, oh, like what do you want to do? So we created like almost like a business consulting course, and we were teaching, and he was a bodybuilder, or he used to be a bodybuilder, so he was kind of in the fitness industry. I was like, hey, like this was way before everybody else. Now everybody teaches other people how to like be online fitness trainers and stuff. This was like 8 years ago or something like that. So we kind of started that business model, and we were doing awesome. Like we were killing it. Like I remember doing like well over like $100,000 in like the first like couple months. And then all of a sudden, like I didn't have any access to the bank accounts, and like I couldn't access any of our software platforms and stuff like that. And then, long story short, he ended up like cutting me out and like fucked me over. He had like the legal contracts that we had. They were like structured to favor him and like give him like sole ownership and stuff like that. So that was it was not my most intelligent business move, but everything in life happens for a reason, and I wouldn't be where I am today if that hadn't happened. So I was pretty upset about that, because like it was funny because all my friends were like, hey, like maybe you should like not trust this guy so much. Like we kind of get a bad vibe from him. But I was like, oh no, this guy's dialed in. Like he was like he was always working, and he was just wanting to keep growing and progressing. But it turns out he was kind of wanting to grow and progress for his own benefit, not like our benefit. But either way, everything in life happens for a reason. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, like whatever. It's just a learning lesson. And then I still had my marketing company where I was doing the online sales for car dealerships. And I had randomly met a woman named Daria and her friend Amy, Amy is like my sister. Amy's the best. Now she is. At the time, I didn't know who she was. She was just this little bright-eyed, like super eager, go-getter girl. And she was kind of like apprenticing under this Daria girl. And she reached out to me, and she's like, hey, we're working on some things down here in Florida. I think like you might be interested in it. And I was like, what are you guys working on? And so she kind of told me, she's like, we're in the legal space, working for law firms and attorneys, and we're essentially doing social media marketing and online marketing to get class action lawsuits and sell them to law firms and attorneys. And I was like, wow, like I have no fucking idea about that. Like I'm not an attorney or anything like that. I'm like, I barely graduated high school. And she's like, no, like everything you're kind of currently doing right now in like the automotive sector, she's like, you can just kind of take those same principles and apply them to what we're doing. So I was like, all right, fuck, you know what? On a whim, flew out to Florida, spent the week with the two girls, and then they were just flooding me with information that I had no idea. I didn't understand any of it. But essentially what they were doing is working on mass torts. And if you're not in the legal space, a mass tort is essentially a class action lawsuit, but where a class action lawsuit is like 1 million people coming together to sue like Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson or a big company. A mass tort is individual people suing that one company. So like a class action is like a big group of people all in there, and then a mass tort's like individual people suing for personal injury. So anyways, I get out there and I'm like, yeah, like there's something here, but like I don't have any fucking knowledge like on this. So at the time, this is like, I'm kind of jumping ahead. I had just started seeing another girl These aren't all back to back, by the way. These are like a couple years in between and stuff, just so you don't think I'm like rolling through women or anything. So I was seeing a girl in Dallas who I had met through the fitness industry, and she was in the fitness industry. And I started working with Daria and Amy, and they were just like fucking locked in, and like they would work 15 hours a day. They were constantly like calling, and like I was trying to keep up to speed with them, like trying to learn as much as I could as fast as I could type thing. And eventually I kind of started figuring out like, all right, this is what I have to do, and this is what they're doing, and like, all right, like I had a path to go down. So did that for a few months, and then I had signed, Andy Frisella. A lot of you guys know Andy Frisella. I had reached out to him because I really liked First Form, the supplement company. And I kind of put supplement sponsorships and stuff on the back burner. I was like, they're all kind of the same. I don't fucking care to be just shooting the same supplement content that everybody shoots. But then I was like, I saw First Form, and I was like, I really like Andy, and I like the way he brands that company and stuff, and I had a lot of respect for him. So I reached out to them. He put me in contact with a guy named Jarrett. What's Jarrett's last name? Anyways, super great guy. He's like one of the athlete managers, I believe. He's probably moved up in position now, but Jarrett Bond, that's his name. Awesome guy. And so he reaches out to me. He's like, hey, do you want to sign with First Form? And I was like, yeah, but like, just so you know, like I'm kind of seeing this girl, and she's in fucking incredible shape. Like she was jacked, like had a great social media presence, very knowledgeable. She was a dietitian. And then he kind of signed us both as like a fitness couple or a fit couple or whatever. And so I got her on with First Form, and they have a big party. Andy's super smart with his marketing. So where a lot of companies will go to the Olympia and they pay millions of dollars for booths, like Bang Energy would pay like $2 million to have like a big booth at the Olympia. And then they have to give out free products. So they lose like hundreds of thousands of dollars giving out free product on the hopes that you'll create enough buzz, and like you'll have all the athletes there shooting content and stuff, that the marketing of them all being in that one area will bring in a bunch of money on the back end. But it wasn't really bringing in enough money as to what they were spending. So Andy was super knowledgeable and way ahead of his time. And he's like, fuck it, we're not going to go to fitness expos anymore. I'm going to have a big party at my house, and I'll fly all the influencers in, and we'll just do cool shit, and it'll just be a First Form party. And if you guys follow First Form, it is now what is known as Summer Bash, and I think Fall Fest. And he might have another one, but at the time he just had the two big parties that they did twice a year. So I went to Dallas. I kind of saw the girl for like 6 months-ish, and she had just gotten through a divorce. Was she married? No, she was engaged, sorry. No, she had been with some guy for a couple of years, and she's like, I'm not really ready to date. And I was like, yeah, like that's cool. So we kind of split up amicably. And then we go to the First Form party. I'm going to be fully transparent. This isn't a good story about myself. We go to the First Form party, and we're at the First Form party, and I get all liquored up, and we were arguing, me and my ex, the girl that I was seeing at the time, we were arguing, and I was like, fuck it. Like, so I was mad at her or something, but I made the mistake of phoning her phone, and I left a message. I was like, you're fucking ungrateful and blah, blah, blah. I just ripped her a new asshole. I don't even know what I said, but I remember that the next day I had woke up and it was Andy on the phone, Jarrett, Andy's brother Sal, and I think that was it. It was the three of them on the call, and they phoned me and they're like, hey, like, they're like, hey, Colin, like, dude, like, that we really like you, and like, you're just like great on the team and stuff. But what she had done is she just took the audio message or the voicemail that I had, and she just played it for all the other girls to hear. And it was just me drunk fucking being a dickhead and a shithead for like 2 minutes on the audio message or something. And so they played it, and I'm on the phone with Andy, Sal, and Jarrett, and I'm just like, I don't remember what I said the night before, but I'm listening to it in the morning when I'm sober, and I'm just like, oh my fucking God. So I'm like, yeah, and they're like, and Andy's like, hey man, like we can't have you on the team, like we got to cut you. And they were like super apologetic, and I was like, no, Andy, like you don't have to apologize to me, dude. Like I completely understand, and like actually I have more respect for you for kicking me off the team. because I definitely fucked up. So yeah. So I lost my sponsorship when they went first form, but which is fine. Like I still message Andy and stuff, and I talk to those guys all the time, and it was just business. It is what it is. But it also actually made me respect his brand more because Andy does such a good job picking. First Form is so successful because they don't pick these dumb influencers that kind of peak and they explode for a little bit and then they drop down. They really pick quality athletes to like align with their brand, and that is something that I really always watch and I respect with First Form. So yeah. So I lost my sponsorship, but everything in life is a learning lesson, and I apologize to the girl, and I wouldn't say we're on good terms. I'm on good terms with every single one of my exes. If you haven't noticed, I don't have a bad word to say about any of the girls that I've ever been in relationships with. But she might be the one that doesn't want to talk to me. Like, I'm still open to her. I wish her the best, and I do see on social media that she's doing well and stuff like that. So, but anyways, so after I got kicked off of the team in St. Louis, I think I flew back. No. I was still in St. Louis, and I got a phone call from Daria, my business partner for the legal marketing company. And she's like, hey, I can't make this conference. Do you want to go to this conference and like kind of network and just try to bring on clients, like these lawyers? And previous to that, she kind of always did all that. And I was like, fuck, like, I don't know how to talk to lawyers. Like, I'm like, I'll go do it. But like, you know, like, I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to be super successful at it. So I remember flying from St. Louis, and I landed in, I believe I went to New Orleans, and they flew me like first class, which like, I have money, I could fly first class. I'm not going to waste the money. So I remember being like, hey, like you don't have to book me on first class. And she was like arguing with me. She's like, the company's paying for it, like just do it. And I'm like, no. And I was trying to argue that like, no, like save the money. I don't need to go first class. But she's like, no, we need you flying first class because it like you'll look more important type thing for these individuals that are very successful. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So fly first class. I land in New Orleans, and she's like, go to the Ritz-Carlton, and we have the presidential suite for you. And I was like, holy fuck, like, no, like I don't need you to put me up in the presidential suite. But again, it was that like marketing thing. She's like, we want you to like look like you're crushing it in the marketing space. And these lawyers, like they're very materialistic and like they're very status oriented. So like, yeah, you're gonna do it. And I was like, all right, fuck, like whatever. But like, I think that we could better invest the company's money in something else. But to her prevail to her word, it was right. So we get in there and I check into this place. I'm wearing like dirty jeans, dirty Wrangler jeans, cowboy boots, like a camo hat. I think I was wearing that camo hat actually that's behind me. And I walk in and I'm like, yeah, I'm checking in for this hotel, blah, blah, blah. They put me into this like presidential suite. I remember the doors opened up and I was like, holy fuck, like just this beautiful place. There was like fruit plates on there, like champagne bottles, like handwritten notes for me and stuff. So I'm like, all right, like whatever. I guess I'm living that lifestyle. So yeah, do that. And then she's like, tomorrow morning you have to go check into this conference. You don't have to like listen to any of the keynote speakers or anything like that. Just be there for when they're done speaking and everybody kind of starts like networking and talking. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Also, I don't have a suit or anything like that. I literally just came from like a fitness first form party. And these guys are all wearing like $5,000 suits and like all dressed up. So I show up the next morning, I'm wearing like dirty fucking Wrangler. I don't think they're dirty, but I was just wearing like Wrangler jeans and like cowboy boots, and I had a black t-shirt on. And I had like a pass that said that I was like a vendor. Which to be a vendor at this event, you have to fucking drop a lot of money to be a vendor. So I remember walking in, and I walked in, and all these lawyers just like turned and stared at me, and like everyone, I could hear people being like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And I'm just like, "Oh, to do, and I'm like pretty happy-go-lucky social butterfly. So I'm like, "Hey, Colin Main, like nice to meet you. Like, what do you do?" Blah blah blah. I'm chatting with people, and I just remember like every person being like, "What do you do?" and like, "Why are you here?" So, but I think it like disarmed them, and I actually ended up doing like really well for clients at that conference. So did that, kind of like figured out like what these conferences are like, because I didn't know what they were like. I just was not prepared for like the what's the word I'm looking for, the procedure to attend one of these. And I'll never forget, I went back up and I sat down, and Daria, my business partner, was right. She's like, if you pay to be in these areas, like the presidential suite and stuff, like you will meet other people in the VIP areas and stuff that are very successful that we want as clients. So I was like, okay, yeah. And then I remember I was sitting down and I was eating, and I was eating breakfast, and there's this woman. She was like 70, like in front of me, and she was just eating by herself. And she had looked over at me, so I kind of smiled and waved, and she was like, oh, do you want to come eat with me? And I was like, oh, yeah, like, all right, cool. So I come over, I sit down, and I'm like, hey, like, so what are you doing? Like, why are you here type thing? She's like, oh, I'm here for a legal conference. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm like, is it the PILMA one? And PILMA is personal injury litigation lawyers marketing, or I don't even remember what it stands for, but it's a personal injury conference. It was the one that I was there for. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, me too. And she's like, you're a lawyer? And I was like, oh no, I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm like, I have a legal marketing company, and like and I was explaining what we did. And she's like, oh, and so she was kind of asking me a bunch of questions, and I was getting the vibe that like she might be someone of importance. So I was like, I'm like, oh, like, what do you do? And she's kind of just like looked at me, and she's like, you don't know who I am? And I was like, no. And she's like, you're in the personal injury space, and you don't know who I am? And I was like, no, but I'm kind of thinking that I should know who you are. And she's like, oh, my name is Gloria Allwright. And if you don't know who Gloria Allwright is, she is a very, very successful lawyer who defended the women that were suing like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby. She's like a very high-profile defense attorney for women, though. And she was speaking at the event. I think she was the keynote speaker of the event. And I was like, oh, and then like, so she was super nice. And because before that, I was like, oh, yeah, you remind me of my mom. And I was just like talking to her like a normal person. And I think it kind of disarmed her. I think that she's used to people speaking to her in like a different manner and trying to get something out of her. It was kind of the sense I got. But I didn't know who the fuck she was. So I was just talking to her like she was a 70-year-old woman. And I was telling her about like where I'm from and stuff. But anyways, yeah, so did that, and then I started flying around to all these other conferences, and I went to, God, I don't even know, like fucking 15 expos. I was in Vegas, or sorry, not expos, conferences. I was in Vegas for a big one. It was called Mass Torts Made Perfect, and that's like, you're around people with like hundreds of millions of dollars, and super, super successful. I remember that was like, I would go to their conferences, and like it was like the Wolf of Wall Street parties. I remember I went to a party in Vegas. I won't mention the lawyer's name, but he's a very, very successful attorney in the legal space. And he threw a party, and it had Mexican midgets, and there was strippers, and I don't even fucking know. It was literally like a Wolf of Wall Street party. And that was just like their parties that they always had. So I started like attending all these parties, and that's where all the networking is done. Everybody gets all drunk and kind of starts talking business at like the parties and at strip clubs and stuff like that. Strip clubs is where all the business happens. And anyways, I did that for like a couple years, and then I was like, I'm kind of like losing interest in this lifestyle. So around that time, I kind of started slowly backing out, and things were changing with our marketing company. The Amy girl that I was mentioning, she was like a little sister to me. I love Amy. Her personality is amazing. So I really hit it off with her. And she was always talking about her boyfriend that she was seeing. And I never got to meet him. I would always be on FaceTimes with him and stuff. Or I would jump on the background when she was on FaceTime with him and stuff and say hi to him and whatnot. And then started seeing a girl in Alabama that I met through the legal industry in like 2019. And she was just I remember I heard her voice. She was Southern Alabama is where she was from. Just this sweet Southern belle accent. And like, I remember I was like, oh. So hit it off with her. Ended up moving down to Alabama to be with her. And she had two little ones. She had a little boy and a little girl. I won't put their names out just because privacy and stuff. But they were like the sweetest little kids ever. She was the best mom ever, and she was a good, strong Southern mom. But yeah, her kids were like, yes, ma'am, no, sir. Like, they were amazing. So I lived with them, and it was during COVID. So she was going to work. She was going to work. I had never dated a woman with kids before. So I had never been in like a father figure type role thing. And I was definitely thrown into the fire quickly because she had to go to work, and because I could work from home, I stayed at home with her kids. And I was just like, fuck, I don't know how to be like a father. Like, I've never been around kids, except for like playing with them for a bit, getting them all hopped up on sugar and then giving them back to their parents. Like, I don't know how to like change diapers and like take care of like things and stuff like that. So it was a learning experience, that's for sure. So ended up dating her for like a year and a half, or maybe not a year and a half, maybe like a little over a year. And then I could only stay 6 months at a time in America. So I had to leave to reset my visa, but because it was COVID, I was like, I'm not fucking going back to Canada. And I would come to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, where I currently am now, and I would reset my visa that way. And then one of my trips here, I randomly met Amy, the girl that I knew through the legal industry. And she's like, hey, I'm in Playa del Carmen. Like, are you here? And I was like, oh, yeah. And actually, when she messaged me, I could see her. Like, she was like 20 feet ahead of me, and I just randomly happened to look up. I was like, where are you? And she said the cafe she was in. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go sneak up. Actually, I think there's a TikTok of this exact moment that I'm talking about that I posted. Because I snuck up behind her, and I like scared her, and I was asking her for money and pretending like I was a creep. Anyways, so she's like, like, oh my God. Like, I was like, hey, where's Scott? Like, I've never got to meet your boyfriend. And she's like, oh, he's out kite surfing. So I was like, okay. So when he came back, I met him at the bar, and I started talking to him. And this is in, like February 2020. And I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm a chemical engineer, but I kind of switched into e-commerce, and I'm starting to see like some success in it. And I was like, oh, dude, like, I've been trying to figure out e-commerce for fucking like ever, but there's so much knowledge out there that like I'm just getting overwhelmed. And he was like, oh, like, it's like, I understand what you're saying. Like, the same happened to me, but I've kind of honed in how to do it. So he was like, if you pay me X amount of dollars, I'll build out your site and your store and have you selling on Amazon. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't fucking know how to do any of this. So he ended up doing that for me. And then I was getting a great return on my investment. And that's kind of how I got into the e-commerce space that I'm currently in. And so, yeah, like, we just started working together. I was running their marketing and helping grow and scale his e-commerce company, and he was helping me like learn how to do e-commerce. And then, like 2 years later, so yeah, my first year, I remember I made $450,000 US. So it was like 650 or 600 some Canadian. And I was like, holy fuck, like, this is like a game changer. So I got really big into running my fitness business and e-commerce. And that's what my main two kind of focuses have been now. And fast forward 5 years later, I did that. I've been doing that for the last 5 years. And kind of fast forward 5 years later, and that's what I'm doing now. So now we have our course, which is I'm sure you guys have seen it, the Amazon FBA to 100K, which is where we help teach other individuals how to grow and scale their Amazon companies. And then I have my fitness coaching. So I think that's the end of my video. That's you guys are all caught up to speed. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, there's a lot of other stuff, but I'm trying to remember. I was trying to piece together like 10 years. But I'm sure this video is going to be like fucking 30 minutes long. But if you guys have the time and you guys did watch it, if you guys want to know anything else, comment below. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of my journey with you guys. And I'll post more content on YouTube. I'm going to do that because I do enjoy talking and providing as much value as I can. If you guys follow me on social media, you guys know that pretty much every single day on my Instagram stories, I say, hey, if there's any way I can help you out, and I mean any way, like if you're flying into Mexico and you're like, hey, how do I get a cab from the airport? 99.9% of the time, I'm like, hey, I know a guy. I'll, like, message this guy, he'll pick you up. Or like you're trying to build out, one of my clients, he was like, hey, I need a nonprofit attorney. I was like, I know a guy. So if I can ever help you out in any manner, like that's where I get my passion from. My passion is helping other people because that's where I get fulfillment in life. So if I'm able to help animals or wildlife, that's what I'm going to be doing. If I'm able to help people with their health and fitness journey or even just personal development, That's what I'm going to focus on. If I'm able to help people with e-commerce and generate more revenue and have more freedom to do the things that they love and live a better lifestyle, that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah, if you guys got any questions, leave them in the comments. If not, I love you all, guys. Have an amazing night.